Aunt Pam to the stage. Aunt Pam, are you there?
I'm here. How's it going?
Hey, doing great. How you doing, Aunt Pam?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
Okay, let's go ahead and get into it, guys. All right, can you give us a 2-minute overview of who Aunt Pam is and what makes you different?
Sure. First of all, I want to say I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the opportunity, Ray, to speak with you and your followers. Number one, I'm Aunt Pam. I'm just a regular person, a real estate investor, been investing since 1999. One thing about Aunt Pam was a motivated seller at one time. Okay, so when it comes to trying to learn how to do this business and understanding this business, because I've been a motivated seller at one time, I can relate not only to investors, I can relate to homeowners. So I think that's a huge difference between someone that's just marketing out there trying to find a deal to make a lot of money. I can actually relate to what a hard time is when it comes to some of these motivated sellers.
Awesome. And then you just mentioned, Aunt Pam, that you were a motivated seller. So do you mind just kind of explaining a little bit as to what caused the motivation without giving too much personal information? You say you was a motivated seller, but
Sure.
If you don't mind sharing a little bit more about that, please.
Sure, absolutely. One of my deals when I'm marketing, I always tell people to try to find someone with multiple issues, not just they're an absentee owner or they live out of state. My situation was this. I was working full-time as a pharmacist. I was a pharmacist in charge for a big chain company in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, okay? One of my parents became ill, all right? So I ended up moving from the Dallas area to come home. Okay, what does that mean? When I came home, I was living with my parents till my house actually sold. When I came home, number one, I was making a mortgage payment on a vacant property, okay? And put the property on the market with the realtor, and I think the listing agreement was like 3 months. The property did not sell. However, a friend of mine found someone who wanted to do a rent-to-own. So I ended up doing a rent-to-own with these people. It took them 2 years to get their credit together, but I had to do a rent-to-own with these individuals in order to, eventually get them to close on the deal and sell my property.
Okay, great. And I'm glad Aunt Pam kind of explained that to everyone, because remember, you're looking for situations, you're looking for motivated sellers. And always remember, you want to go in with a heart as a servant. You want to make sure you find out what the situation is that the people are involved in and come up with a solution. And so Aunt Pam just explained to you how she became a motivated seller. And so I even became a motivated seller back in my days too, when I was going through my situation. So it happens to all of us. All right, so the next question, Aunt Pam, is you're there in the Houston market. What would you say has been the biggest challenge in your market?
The challenge here, I don't like using the word competition, but you have a lot of people that's doing this business here in the Houston market. And it's not just the Houstonians that's doing the business, but you have out-of-state people that's doing the quote-unquote virtual thing. So for me, I've had to kind of change up my marketing, because as far as direct mail, everybody's doing direct mail. Everybody's doing the yellow letters or even maybe the bandit signs. So I've had to change up my marketing just because of like I said, I don't want to say competition, because so many people are coming into this business. So I have to be, my marketing has to be extremely targeted when I'm targeting motivated sellers. I was talking to a real good friend of mine who hit well over 6 figures last year, and he was just telling me a couple of days ago, he said, yeah, deals are harder. They're getting harder to come by. So just because I think a lot of it is training, and I think also you have people that are out there putting properties under contract and they're actually overpaying for properties. So you have a seller, they have this false hope when it comes to selling these properties. So my offer of $50,000 may not be enough for you because somebody else just offered you 65, which means they may be actually overpaying for your property. So that's just one of the challenges that I face here in Houston.
Okay, great. That's great to hear. And just like you just said, we all have challenges. There's going to be competition in any market you go to. And actually, competition is a great sign that lets you know that there's opportunity. When you have competition in areas, there's opportunities. So, Pam, I'm kind of curious. We call you Aunt Pam. That's a name that you've branded. How did you come up with the term Aunt Pam? Where did that come from?
Well, first of all, I have a bunch of nieces and nephews. I don't have any children. And my sister had like 8 children. So for us, it wasn't just taking care of our household. It was helping my sister with her children. And so anyway, one day I was we had bandit signs. And my little great nephews, they were helping me put the signs on the wooden stakes. So anyway, one of them picked the sign up, and at the time, the sign said "We buy houses." So I didn't think about an Aunt Pam at the time, and so they were walking around like they were picket signs, right? So anyway, I was telling a friend of mine about that, and he was like, "You know what? One of these days, your little nieces and nephews is gonna start calling you Aunt Pam, and they just gonna start saying my Aunt Pam buys houses." And I was like, I kind of like that. So I mean, the rest is history. Everything from that point on has been Aunt Pam this or Aunt Pam that as far as the real estate arena is concerned. I mean, people at church, they call me Sister Aunt Pam. I have cousins that call me Cousin Aunt Pam. Even the pastor of my church called me Aunt Pam. So, that's the original, deal from that Aunt Pam stuff.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna start calling you First Lady Aunt Pam. How about that? Okay, so Aunt Pam, I call you Aunt Pam. It just kind of depends on where you're from, whether you say aunt or aunt. I say aunt. But anyways, sure. Aunt Pam, what's your motivation? Who inspires you to do what you do, to go hard every day?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm one of those people. When I get up, Ray, I'm motivated because I have an opportunity. When I wake up, one of the first things I say, thank God, for another day. Thank God for waking me up. And I always read a scripture from the Bible. However, I'm self-motivated, but we all need extra inspiration. But I can honestly tell you, the people that originally inspired me were my parents, okay? They were in the business, they came from the country. They didn't have all of the education that I had. So they really inspired me. The pastor of our church, he inspires me because during his sermons, he talks about, money and, where we as people, we need to do better when it comes to finances. We need to do better with not being so much of a consumer-based society, but owning businesses. Other people that inspire me, even people like you, people who are new to this business, say a couple, 2 or 3 years in this business, making 6 figures. I mean, once you start doing it, you never look back. That inspires me. People there's a couple of guys here, young guys in their 20s, making $400,000 and $500,000 a year in this business, and they're pretty new, to the business. That inspires me. And it's not so much about the money side. It's more about that. I don't care where you are, where you start, what age you are. You can be successful in this business. So I just get inspired, just feeding off of other people and networking with the right people and surrounding the right people in my circle that's doing good.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's great to hear, and I appreciate that, Aunt Pam. And so my next question to you is this. All right, so as the title states, you are a licensed pharmacist, and you were doing that full time, and so now you're doing real estate full time. So it's a 2-part question. The first question is, what do you specialize when it comes to real estate? What are some things you like to specialize in or focus on? And then the second question is, being there, I've seen pictures on Facebook with a lot of youth, a lot of kids around wearing the Aunt Pam buys houses. So what are you doing for the community to bring awareness to real estate?
Okay. First of all, oh man, my mind just went blank. What was the first question, Ray? I'm sorry. I'm watching my dog.
What do you specialize in?
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, my business setup is mainly around wholesaling. Okay. Now, with that being said, when I first got into business, I was a landlord. All right. So the landlord or rental side of business, I'm well aware of that. I used to do a lot of short sales, used to do a lot of subject twos. However, wholesaling is the main focus of my business. But with that being said, because of what we talked about earlier, I don't say competition, but it is competition. We're actually going to start marketing this week to foreclosures. So with those deals, those are either going to be subject to, or they're going to be some type of short sale where we eventually have to wholesale. So I guess you can really still say it's wholesaling, but I'm one of those people, when I go into a seller and I listen to their situation, I customize a solution for their problem, because not every deal is 60 cents on the dollar. There are people with no equity. But if you want to say my main focus is wholesaling. As far as the children, I love children. Last year, I think you may have seen, I think it's my cover page. We have a picture of some kids. We actually went out to the community. We were involved in a Renaissance festival in one of the areas, neighborhoods here in Houston. So, of course, they had the little Aunt Pam buys houses T-shirts on. But, we were passing out flyers. We were talking to people. They were talking to other children. Even my nieces and nephews, the little bitty ones, I get them involved because, number one, my parents taught me, you don't want to have to be at the mercy of other people. You want to be able to paddle your own canoe. That was my dad's words. So my nieces and nephews, when I'm dealing with them, a lot of times it's work. I mean, whether it's church work or whether it's going out into the communities, putting out bandit signs, that's work. And it lets them know that, they can be a little business owner. So those are a couple of things that I do as far as the community with the kids at church. They try to go on trips every year. Sometimes it's very difficult. So, I help them as far as fundraising activities, to help them raise funds so they can go on trips or, whatever they're trying to do.
Okay, great. That's great to hear. And once again, you definitely got to get involved in your community. And so Aunt Pam, she's a very great example of paying it forward, giving back to the community. So it's so important. All right, so next question, Aunt Pam, is you're a female. You've been in the business for a long time. Can you kind of talk about some of the challenges you have experienced being a female in what's considered a male-dominant industry?
Sure, absolutely. It's funny that you asked that because I know when I got into pharmacy, I know we're talking about real estate, but when I got into pharmacy, at the time, it was a 70-30 percentage male to female ratio. And I don't even know what it is to this day because I don't keep up with pharmacy like that anymore. But for me, I don't so much worry about the male to the female deal because, number one, I look at it this way. If you know your product, if you know what you're talking about, okay, a seller will work with you just because. Now, what does that mean? Most people, when they look at a female, a lot of times they'll say, even in conversation, people say, oh, you do real estate? You an agent? No, man. Oh, you sell houses? No. I get out there in the grind. We go out and buy houses. We go out and put bandit signs and things like that. Okay. But what happens is, say for an example, we had I had a seller give me a call. Okay. It was he and his wife. And I did my little spiel, told them what I do and all this stuff, went to the house, gave them offers, these are your options or whatever. Followed up with the people almost a week. 2 weeks later, they gave me a call. And they said, okay, we're ready to do the deal. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I just felt that they worked with somebody else. They didn't want to deal with me, whatever the situation was. So once I got to that person's property, those people's property, and we sat down, we were doing a contract. I did a tabletop closing. I don't recommend people do that, but that's what we did. And I just asked them, and that's a question I always ask a seller. I said, well, I'm just curious, why did you end up going with me? And the husband just got out front and he said, because you sound like you know what you're talking about. He said there were people that come in and he said some of these were guys, they sound like they were making up stuff as they go along. But you were very confident and you knew what you were talking about. So for me, now I'm not going to go up and I'm not going to put a nail to the roof and all this kind of stuff. I'm not going to do that. But when it comes to a motivated seller and being able to provide a solution, if you know your product and you understand your product and you understand and you listen to that customer, I don't really think people really care. And that's just my opinion. I could, some people may beg to differ.
Okay, great response. And just to segue to that question, I want to ask you the next question, and that's what normally separates a successful investor to an unsuccessful investor?
Yeah, that's a good one. Successful investors, I think we go out and we make sacrifices. Okay, we make sacrifices. You take, and I'm gonna use the pharmacy thing again. When I was in college, those of us who stayed up late studying, those of us who stayed up late to maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning at study sessions, eventually we graduated. We were able to move on. Those who chose not to do that, it took them 2 or 3 years later, and some of them ended up getting out of the profession altogether. They didn't even graduate. Okay, so in this business, we sacrifice, we don't use a lot of excuses, and we take this bit, we look at real estate as a true business. Okay, whereas unsuccessful people, and then another thing, the instantaneous gratification, we know it's going to take time. Okay, but you take an unsuccessful investor, number one, they don't want to get their education, and I may not have even mentioned that, but they don't want to get the education, they don't want to spend the time to get the education, they don't want to spend the money to get the education, okay? They don't want to make the sacrifices, they want the instantaneous gratification. They see someone that'll post a check, which is very inspiring, is very motivating, but they don't know what it took to get that check, and they don't want to take the time out to learn the process. So that person ends up being what? Unsuccessful. So those are some of the things I think that makes a successful person different from a non-successful person. And another thing, your network. Who are you networking with? Who's in your circle? You know, you need people in your circle that's going to be on you like white on rice. You need people in your circle that'll make you grind. They motivate you to grind. Those are the people that you need in your circle.
That's right. I haven't heard that term white on rice in a minute, though, Aunt Pam. So you you kind of show your age a little bit. But that's a great,
old school there.
I know that's right. I know that's right. That's a great response. Okay, so let's talk about goals. Can you kind of share with us, you know, what your 90-day goal, just maybe one goal for 90 days, 6 months, and a 12 months. So just kind of give us one or two of your goals for the next 90 days, 6 months, and 12 months.
Okay. All right, for 90 days, number one, this is something that I try to do on a regular basis. You know, I try to get like at least 4 deals under contract every week. That doesn't always work out, but being consistent with my deal flow, getting the word out there, especially to my fellow pharmacists about the profession of real estate, because I know the struggle that pharmacists have. So for the next 90 days, I'm working on a couple of websites, not just for pharmacists, but for regular people, new people that's really trying to get involved in this business. As far as the 6 months go, and another thing with the 90 days, hiring certain team members to kind of free me up from certain tasks. The 6 month goal, I'm going to continue that process. The 12-year goal, because I got a lot of stuff going on, the 12-month goal, rather, I'm working on some extracurricular stuff and sponsorships for kids, and I'm working on some other stuff that'll help generate 7 figures for me. So there's going to be a combination of several things that I'm going to have going on that's going to help me be able to accomplish those goals.
Oh, wow. Great. Thank you very much for sharing that. I do want to ask you one extra question because we mentioned offline, you're a pharmacist, you're a licensed pharmacist, and you mentioned something about being able to network with some pharmacists to bring them into the industry. What about competition? Yeah, you ever thought about maybe if you taught these pharmacists what you know, they can turn around and be your competition? Can you kind of talk about how you're making them advocates versus making them competitors?
Sure. First of all, we as pharmacists are very anal, okay? We as pharmacists are very, everything is by the book, all right? So, and we as pharmacists, we can't make mistakes, all right? Most of those pharmacists that are going to probably get in this industry, and I'm working with one right now on wholesaling, those people, for the most part, are only going to end up being landlords, okay? The concept of wholesaling, because I know where my mindset was at one time, they may have a real hard time with understanding that concept, okay? I don't worry about those people because at the end of the day, even when I train them, they're going to be so busy working their regular full-time job, they're not going to have time to go out here and do a lot of the things that I'm doing. So at the knowledge base, and I'm not downplaying, their brain cells or anything like that, I just don't think most of them are going to have the craziness that I had to go out there and say, forget the job and do exactly what I'm doing. They're eventually still going to have to come back to me with questions and answers anyway. So I don't even worry about that. And another thing, the more people that we're able to help, the better the world is. So I don't even worry about, that part.
Hey man, Aunt Pam, I couldn't have said it any better, because that's another example of having an abundant mindset. See, Aunt Pam, she gets it, and that's why you want to surround yourself around people that's doing great and positive things and get that concept of abundance and not scarcity. So she's not concerned about somebody learning from her and becoming competition, or, somebody taking her ideas and going and use them against her. It's not about that, guys. It's all about paying it forward and help somebody else reach their goals and dreams. 2 more questions. Number 9, if you had to do it all over again, Aunt Pam, what would you change?
Oh, Lord Jesus. Oh, God, where do I need to start? To be honest with you, I think, first of all, I would have gotten into business a lot sooner because my parents had rental property and they tried to get me in the business and it just seemed like it was a pain. But I would have gotten into the business a lot sooner. But once I learned how to wholesale properties, I would have been more aggressive and did a lot more of the wholesaling, okay? Because with wholesaling, you're able to build capital, okay? So with that being said, you can go out there, you can buy a property for cash, close on that deal, and put it on the MLS. I have a good friend that he does that a lot. So go out there, put that property on the MLS. I didn't know anything about doing that. Okay, so that's one thing I would have done. Number 2, and I would have done that simultaneously while still working as a full-time pharmacist and collecting rental properties, increasing my portfolio. Okay, another thing I would have done differently, and eventually I want to do this, is have enough capital coming in with, say, like it's wholesaling, and eventually be a private lender. That's what I would have, because as I look back, that's something that I could have done years ago, but I didn't know, and I didn't have that mindset at that time. And you live and you learn, and you have different experiences. There's so many different things that have happened in my life from the time I started the business up until now. It hadn't all been gravy. I've had a lot of setbacks. So, but those are some of the things that I would do different for sure.
Great. And I'm glad she also mentioned something about being a private lender, because I'm telling you, the money, who has the money and who has the gold rules. So you don't want to be dependent on others. So if you can have a way where you can fund your own deals and you can do private loans and stuff, that's going to put you way ahead of the average person, the average wholesaler that's out there. All right. So the next question, Aunt Pam, is what are 3 things that newbie investors need to know before they get started in the business? 3 things. Okay.
Number 1, this whole thing, if you're going to do a business, you have to have the right mindset. So first off, step 0, in my opinion, it's just going to be one thing, is going to be the mindset. You have to have your mind set up, okay? And you got to have the right, not just any mindset, but I say not just any mindset, but the right mindset. And what does that mean? You got to really physically go out here and do something with the knowledge that you have. Stop looking for the secret sauce. It does not exist. Stop looking for somebody to take you to the kingdom, to the promised land or whatever, because it does not exist. Another thing, which is a major pet peeve for me, is the fact that, and this happens with a lot of people, and it's not just new people, respect the business. Okay, some people say the grind. I don't necessarily use that word, but respect the grind, respect the business, because this is a business. Have the respect that there are people, you say, even a mentor, people like Ray or whomever, those people, they've paved the way. Okay, they do what they do. They had to pay for whatever bit of education and information, they had to pay for it. So you have to understand that. Okay, you have to respect that. When somebody gets a check from at closing, there's a lot of things that happened before that person got that check. There were sleepless nights. There were long days. Okay, so you have to respect that. You have people that have a husband and wife, or wife and whatever it is. They have children. They quit their job to do this business. Okay, so you have to respect this business. Okay, when I was working as a pharmacist, I was working for a big chain. we had what we call a misfield school. So if you ever made a bunch of certain number of misfields, you know, you had to go out of state to a misfield school. I never made it there. I always tried to be perfect with what I was did, even though I still made mistakes. In this business, there is no misfield school. Okay, you will make mistakes. It's okay. It's part of the learning process. It's part of learning. Okay, if I go out and put a label at a pharmacy, put a label on a medication that's supposed to be used for the eye, but come to find out that medicine is used for nail fungus, that's a misfield. You don't have to worry about that when it comes to this business. So if you're sitting on the fence, don't just sit there waiting for the perfect storm or the perfect this to happen. It does not exist. Okay, so bottom line is just go out there and make it happen.
I hear you. I'm here trying to respond and trying to listen to you at the same time, but that's great. I'm glad you clarified what a misfield is too. I was assuming that was, you know, basically doing like a wrong prescription or putting, you know, giving somebody the wrong medication, and which you probably can get sued and stuff behind that stuff too if you misfill enough medication. So that's this portion of the question. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and open it up for Q&A. Aunt Pam, I just want to say I really appreciate that information you gave us. Now, Aunt Pam, if you have your phone up, you can go ahead and start trying to read some of the comments too. But guys, go ahead, answer your questions. Let's make sure we ask good questions. You know, don't ask Aunt Pam how much money she make, how much money she got in the bank. That's totally irrelevant. That doesn't have anything to do with your success. If you want to ask her something specific to help you get your business going, let's go for it. All right, somebody even said any good books on mindset. So can you talk about mindset, Aunt Pam?
Sure. One of the books, and everybody talks about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. However, that particular book, and I'm being totally honest with you, that helped me a lot go from the employee mindset to a business owner mindset. Okay. Another book that's real good is The Millionaire Next Door. Was a very good book, and I know these are old books, but it's a very good book. The Richest Man in Babylon is a very good book. Dan Kennedy even talks about, he has a book called Marketing to the Affluent. Okay, so if you market to poor people, that's the kind of money you're gonna make. You market to affluent people, that's the kind of money you're gonna make. So it kind of helps change your mindset a little bit when you think about it.
Yeah, Aunt Pam, and just to clarify, all those books are old.
Man, whatever.
But look, I'm just saying, I know, because I read them all too. So hey, it's not calling you old or anything.
Well, I'm just saying because it's like, see, we look for new stuff. If you think you take for an example, Napoleon Hill. Those books are old, but at the same time, the foundation and fundamentals are the same. It's still the same.
Oh, okay. All right, so what's another question, too? My wife told me I was old, too. All right, baby, man. Easy now, easy. All right, so any other questions, guys? Let's go ahead and ask Aunt Pam. Aunt Pam, there's a lot of cold. Okay, so do you do a lot of cold calling? That's what someone just asked.
Yes, we do cold calling. I did a lot of cold calling last week and got a lot of no's. Okay, so
can you kind of expound upon that? How do you get past the no's, get past the rejections, or how do you teach your team and staff how to get past those no's?
First of all, you got to have thick skin. Okay, when you're just picking the phone up, calling somebody, and we do role playing also. You literally have to have some thick skin. Okay, I don't push the issue, and the people that we cold call. Typically, there are people who really need to sell a property or whatever, but those people are still going to say no. Say, for an example, there was one guy, he told me, hey, look, this property has been in our family for years, and we just don't plan on selling it. I'm like, okay, that's okay. I just don't force the issue. There are people that say, well, how did you get my information? We just tell them, it's public information. It's just stuff is, as simple as that.
Okay, cool. I'm getting a lot of comments coming through. Somebody said you a gangster, which that's a compliment, Aunt Pam. Just so you know, that's a compliment. Somebody also asked, can you talk more about your private lending and where do you get the leads from to cold call?
Okay. I am not a private lender. That's one of the things that I eventually want to do. My private lenders, I use the pharmacy, and that's another thing. I work 2 days a month. at a pharmacy. And one of my private lenders is a physician. So what I do, I use my profession in order to be able to get money from people who may have money in a 401k or people who make good money. However, they don't want to deal with the property per se. Okay. You can go to networking events. A lot of times you have private lenders at networking events as well. But, if you close some deals, let people know what you do. Even if you have to partner with someone just to be able to get the funds on a deal. I mean, you don't want to do that long term, but you can do that as well. And what was the other question?
About cold calling.
My list of is public information. There's so many different people. You got code violations. There's absentee owners. Whatever list that you normally target, whether it's probate or whatever, you can easily cold call those people, even if it takes, doing some skip tracing to get their phone numbers.
All right, somebody just asked, can you put a house on the contract? Can you put a house that you have on the contract on the MLS?
Yes, you can. You have to work with the right realtor, though.
Okay. All right, so keep the questions coming, guys. Remember, Aunt Pam gave a wealth of knowledge. Who's your biggest asset in your team? All right, that's the next question. Who's the biggest asset on your team?
For me, to be honest with you, is my team only consists of a small number of people, but my acquisition person is very important, and the title agents are very important. They're very important because and it's not so much a title company, it's actually the individuals, those escrow officers, they're so important when it comes to those transactions, because there are people, they may have been in the business for a while, but they may not have experienced certain types of transactions. So escrow officers are very, very, very important to me, and my acquisition people that I work with are very important to me.
All right, so the next question is, I've got a couple questions. Can you explain skip tracing? Do you skip trace? And if so, who do you use?
Okay, skip tracing is basically you're trying to find somebody. Okay, say for an example, you may have that person's address, but you don't have their telephone number. You can't find that person. Okay, so what do? You either become a private eye, which you don't have to do, or you hire a skip tracing company. TLO is a skip tracing company. Old school Zaba search is still around. That's a way to find people. Scopio.com is another website. Talking to neighbors is another way to find out about people, because nosy neighbors know a lot of things about a lot of people.
Okay. All right, guys. We about to get ready to wind up. Do you have a few more questions, Aunt Pam, please?
Sure.
Let's scroll. All right, if you see the questions too, let me know. What's the highest converting list right now, and how do you determine your Mayo? So what
is the highest converting list right now for the? You know what? To be honest with you, I'm gonna be totally. When it comes to converting lists and things like that, it's not so much the list per se. It's what you do with the information that you've received from that seller. You can have the most highly motivated person calling you, but if you don't know how to talk to people, if you don't know how to negotiate with people, all of that other stuff doesn't matter. High equity, out of state, high equity is a very good list. Code violations, evictions. Foreclosures, bankruptcy, all of those deals are very good lists. But I like targeting people who may have multiple problems going on at one time.
Great answer, guys. I hope you really, really heard what she said when it came to, it's really not about the list. And I say that often too. It comes down to you and how you can connect with that person and make sure you find out that you know what's going on with their situations, okay? We only can take a couple more questions. What are some of the toughest obstacles you had to overcome early on in real estate? And she kind of answered it a little earlier during the scope. And so, Aunt Pam, look, we really appreciate it. Were you coached by Ray? No, Aunt Pam been in the game for a long time. She created some of this stuff that we're doing now.
Which I'm still learning from
Mario,
Ray.
Yeah. But anyway, Aunt Pam, how can people get in contact with you? Somebody did ask earlier, do you do any coaching? And can you go ahead and give me your contact information, please?
Sure. Yeah, I do some mentoring in my. Oh, it's not. This is your scope. You can send me an email at evictyourrealestatefears@gmail.com. Evictyourrealestatefears@gmail.com. And I will definitely help you get rid of those fears. My student last year, he had a very hard time, so I had a hard time, helping him overcome those fears. But also, if you follow me on Periscope, also in my bio, there's a teamwork program I have. If you click on the link, you can add your information there and I'll receive it, and we can network that way as well.
Great, great. Okay, so we're about to go ahead and get ready to wrap this up because we're coming up on 40 minutes. I think Aunt Pam did a great job because most time we have to do the benediction and, we have to, people be falling asleep sometimes because she keep talking. I know I'm talking about myself. That's why I'm, putting it on her. But any kind of last words you want to share with everyone, Aunt Pam, before we go?
How did y'all meet? We met on Facebook originally, and then Periscope took it to a totally different level.
That's it.
My closing remarks before the benediction is, you know how the pastor always get up. Any closing remarks about a pastor? Anyway, to be honest with you, if you're on the fence, and I say this all the time, seriously, go out there and help as many people as you can. Don't worry about making mistakes. There's a lot of money that's made in this industry by regular, everyday people, okay? Go out there and make it happen. There's not enough investors. I said this on one of my scopes recently. There's not enough investors to help the people that need our help. Okay, go out there, get the education, get you a mentor, get someone to help you through the process. Will it cost you some money? I'm sure it will. But it's a lot better than fumbling around in what they call the school of hard knocks. That's a lot more expensive.
All right, guys, and there you have it. I'm telling you, Aunt Pam, she's a veteran in the industry like I shared earlier. This concludes our interview. I really appreciate her for taking the time out of her busy schedule to come and share this information with you guys. I'm sure you got a lot of value. Make sure you connect with her via Facebook or via Periscope. She comes on from time to time, so make sure you holler at her and just reach out to her, especially if you're there in the Houston market. Make sure you reach out to her. But until next time, this is Aunt Pam and your boy Ray Mabry about to sign off. And until next time, peace.